In 1886, France didn't just adopt a new cartridge, they ignited a revolution. The 8mm Lebel wasn't an upgrade. It was a leap into the future. The first smokeless powder round ever fielded by a military, it changed how battles were fought, how rifles were built, and how nations prepared for war. Before the 8mm Lebel could change warfare, the French had to solve a problem older than the cartridge itself: gunpowder. In the mid-1800s, researchers discovered that nitric acid could create explosive compounds when absorbed into plant fibers like paper. This led to the creation of flash paper, a dramatic but dangerously unstable material that burned too fast and unpredictably to be useful outside the lab. Then came gun cotton. When nitric acid was brought into contact with cotton, it produced a more powerful and somewhat more stable explosive. Gun cotton showed promise, especially in artillery, thanks to its high gas production and low cost. But it was still too volatile for mass production. Experiments continued. Researchers found that by carefully controlling the manufacturing process, especially through multi-step washing and drying, gun cotton could be made significantly more stable. This version was usable in explosives, but it still burned too fast and erratically for use in firearms. The breakthrough came in 1884, when French chemist Paul-Marie Eugène developed a method to transform gun cotton into a gelatin. This gelatin could be rolled flat, dried, and broken into uniform flakes, similar to traditional black powder. These flakes burned at a controlled rate, were shelf-stable and safe to transport. The result was poudre B, or white powder, the first practical smokeless propellant. It was 3 times more powerful than black powder and produced no smoke, solving one of the biggest problems with repeating firearms: visibility after rapid fire. Inspired by American big game hunters using high-velocity rounds, the French sought a flatter trajectory and better long-range accuracy. But black powder melted lead bullets at high speeds, deforming them and reducing accuracy. The solution? A smaller diameter bullet fired at higher velocity, encased in brass to prevent deformation. The French also needed to adapt their existing arsenal, over 1 million Graz rifles and thousands of Kropatschek models. The result was the 8x50mm rimmed Lebel, created by necking down the 11x59mm rimmed black powder round in 2 stages. This allowed compatibility with existing bolt heads and increased ammunition capacity. The first version, Ball M, featured a 15-gram flat nose bullet traveling nearly 700 meters per second, effective for aimed fire at 400 meters and volley fire up to 1,800. The cartridge startled Europe. During the Franco-Prussian War, French troops armed with chassepot rifles could fire 40,000 rounds per minute, but the smoke cloud was blinding. Now, with Lebel rifles and smokeless powder, they could fire 5 times as much with no smoke and greater range. Otto von Bismarck was so alarmed by the French advantage that he urged restraint during the Bulgarian crisis, fearing war before Germany could rearm. The 8mm Lebel never meant to be the final word. Almost immediately, France began developing a rimless successor and a new bullet. In 1898, Captain Georges Desselot introduced Ball D, a 12.8-gram Spitzer boat, tail bullet made of bronze. It offered flatter trajectory and better long-range performance, becoming the first pointed boat tail bullet adopted by any military. In 1912, Ball D and Bomber-sized modifié improved primer crimping for machine gun reliability. Then in 1932, Ball N was introduced, a 15-gram lead cord steel-jacketed bullet with a slightly larger neck diameter. Designed for Hotchkiss Mill 1914 machine guns, it required rifles to be rechambered and marked with an N on the barrel and receiver. Despite its quirks, the 8mm Lebel remained in service from 1886 to the 1990s, an astonishing lifespan for a cartridge born in the age of single-shot rifles. After World War I, France sought to modernize its arsenal with the 7.5V 58mm cartridge, later refined to 7.5V 54mm, yet logistical and financial constraints delayed its widespread adoption. In the meantime, the Lebel round continued to evolve. The Ball N variant, introduced in 1932, was designed to improve long-range performance in heavy machine guns like the Hotchkiss Model 1914. It featured a lead core, a cupro-nickel over steel jacket, and a slightly larger neck diameter. To safely fire ball N, rifles had to be rechambered and marked with an N, one stamp on the barrel, another on the receiver. Between 1928 and 1939, over 1 million rifles were recalled and modified. This massive logistical effort extended the cartridge relevance well into the interwar period and beyond, even as newer rifles like the MAS-36 entered service. The 8mm Lebel lingered in reserve units, colonial forces, and gendarme arsenals. The last Berthier carbines and Hotchkiss machine guns chambered for it weren't retired until the 1990s. That's more than 80 years of service, nearly 50 of them on the front lines. The 8mm Lebel was a marvel of its time, but its design came with compromises. Its rimmed, double-tapered case was ideal for the tube magazine of the Lebel rifle. To prevent accidental primer strikes, engineers added a circular groove around the primer cup. This groove caught the tip of the following pointed bullet, keeping it safely offset. Convex primer covers crimped in place added a second layer of protection. These innovations worked. Millions of rounds were fired in combat without incident, proving the design's reliability. But the same features that made it safe in a tube magazine made it awkward elsewhere. Feeding rimmed cartridges in vertical box magazines, like those on Berthier rifles or show-shot machine guns, was inefficient. The pronounced rim and taper caused stacking issues, requiring curved magazines and careful alignment. The bolt thrust of the 8mm Lebel was also relatively high, placing stress on locking mechanisms and limiting its suitability for automatic weapons. While it could be fired from semi-automatic rifles like the Model 1917 and even adapted to machine guns, it was never ideal for those platforms. In short, the cartridge was brilliant, but it was built for a rifle that was already becoming obsolete. The 8mm Lebel and 8mm Mauser are often compared, but they represent two very different philosophies in cartridge design. The Lebel was first adopted in 1886. It was revolutionary. The first smokeless powder cartridge, the first Spitzer boat tail bullet, and the first to force a global arms race. But it was also a product of its time, rimmed, tapered, and tailored to a tube magazine. The Mauser, adopted by Germany in 1888, was rimless and more adaptable. Its 7.92 by 57mm case fed smoothly from box magazines and was better suited to bolt action rifles, semi-automatics, and machine guns. Ballistically, the Mauser had more case capacity and could handle higher pressures. It became the backbone of German military firepower through 2 world wars, chambered in rifles like the Gewehr 98 and Kar 98K, and machine guns like the MG08 and MG34. While the Lebel sparked the smokeless revolution, the Mauser perfected the rimless design that would dominate the 20th century. Today, the 8mm Mauser remains popular among hunters and collectors. The 8mm Lebel, by contrast, is a historical artifact, rare, and largely retired. Can you still hunt with the 8mm Lebel? Technically, yes. Ballistically, it's no slouch. The Baldy Spitzer bullet delivers around 2,481 foot-pounds of energy, and the heavier ball end pushes that to nearly 2,767. That's comparable to standard pressure 30-06 Springfield loads. More than enough for deer, elk, and similar sized game. Accuracy is also respectable. The Baldy's boat tail design gives it a high ballistic coefficient, allowing it to retain velocity and resist wind drift better than many contemporary rounds. In the hands of a skilled marksman, the cartridge can still perform. But the real challenge is logistics. Commercial hunting ammunition for the 8mm Lebel is extremely rare. Most available loads, like those from Purvey Partisan, are full metal jacket, designed for military use or reenactment. Full metal jacketed bullets don't expand on impact, making them unsuitable and often illegal for ethical hunting. In countries like Germany, where hunting laws strictly prohibit the use of military-style ammunition, hunters have historically modified surplus rounds by flattening the bullet tip. This practice supposedly helps ensure expansion on impact, transforming a non-expanding, full metal jacketed bullet into a more humane projectile. While not ideal, it reflects the ingenuity of hunters working within legal constraints. Hand loading remains the most reliable path for serious hunters. Reloaders can reform .348 Winchester brass and seat-appropriate soft-point or round-nosed bullets. Then there's the rifle itself. The Lebel Model 1886 and Berthier carbines are over a century old. While mechanically sound in many cases, they lack the precision, ergonomics, and reliability of modern hunting rifles. Their sights are dated, their triggers heavy, and their feeding systems, especially the Lebel's tube magazine, require caution and experience. In short, the 8mm Lebel is ballistically capable, but practically obsolete. It's a cartridge for collectors, historians, and handloaders, not for the average hunter heading into the woods. The 8mm Lebel was never just a cartridge, it was a turning point. It marked the end of black powder warfare and the beginning of modern ballistics. It was the first to harness smokeless powder, the first to field a Spitzer boat-tail bullet, and the first to force every major power to rethink its military doctrine. Its design wasn't perfect. The rimmed case and double taper made it awkward for box magazines. Its high bolt thrust limited its use in automatic weapons. And the rifles that chambered it, though groundbreaking in their time, were quickly outpaced by newer designs. Yet despite these limitations, the 8mm Lebel endured. It served in 2 world wars, countless colonial conflicts, and remained in arsenals for over 80 years. It was a cartridge born of innovation, sustained by adaptation, and retired only when the world had fully moved on. Today, it lives on in the hands of reenactors, collectors, and historians. It's studied, admired, and occasionally fired, not for its practicality, but for its legacy. Because the 8mm Lebel wasn't just the first of its kind, it was the spark that lit the fuse of modern warfare. And in every rimless, high-velocity, boat-tailed round that followed, you can still hear its echo. But a cartridge is only half the story. Next time, we'll meet the rifles that carried it into history, from the rugged Lebel Model 1886 to the streamlined Berthier carbines and the Hotchkiss machine guns that roared across 2 world wars. Because behind every round fired, there's a story in steel waiting to be told. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, a like and comment would mean a lot. I try to respond to every comment, even the tough ones. And if you think I've earned it, your subscription would truly mean the world to me. See you in the next one.